Hey, this is Senator Justin Reedy coming to you from Annapolis here on Good Friday at the end of the 11th full week of the 2024 General Assembly session. First of all, I hope all of you are looking forward to a wonderful Easter weekend with your family. It's an important time for my family and as we celebrate our faith in Jesus Christ, and we hope that everybody has a great weekend spending time together. Obviously, this past week, the biggest news was the awful collapse of the Key Bridge. That was just a terrible, terrible thing that happened in the early hours of Tuesday morning with loss of life. Thankfully, only 6 lives were lost, and it's terrible, but it could have been far worse thanks to the quick responses of the police and first responders to stop traffic before that ship hit the bridge. But it's left the state with some serious problems we're going to have to solve. Obviously, excavating and re-clearing the channel so that the port can reopen. Every day that the port at Baltimore is closed, it's $15 million a day that it's costing, and there's just tremendously negative economic impact to our state. Also, we have to get the bridge rebuilt. We're looking at state legislatures at what we need to do to be ready for some of the costs that may be associated with rebuilding up front. It does appear that there's going to be federal money available, federal taxpayer money available, but also there will be, I'm sure, going after the shipping company, but sometimes those insurance payouts can take a long time. So there's a lot of things we have to do procedurally to try to get us back to where we can get the port open and be ready to try to put this bridge back in place, which will take a long time. So everybody's certainly just very concerned about that impact on the communities that are involved, and of course the people who lost their lives. And so that's obviously weighed on us as this week as we've gone about our work. We have just over a week left before we end the 2024 session, and I'm always counting down to the end of session because the old saying is very true: no man's life or liberty is safe when the legislature is in session. We're trying to get to the end without a lot of damage. As I mentioned in last week's video, the big sort of under the table tension that's happening right now is that the Senate, we passed a balanced budget and accompanying what's called BRFA with no tax increases, a balanced budget that actually spends money less money than last year. The House, on the other hand, passed a budget and a BRFA that raises taxes, and so significantly. So right now, there is what's known as a conference committee, members of the Senate Budget Committee and the House Budget Committees that are meeting together to try to hash out what to do about the differences in the two versions of the budget. The Senate, up till now, Republicans have led the charge in the Senate, and of course the House Republicans as well, against raising taxes. And our Senate Democratic leadership to this point has held firm as well. Not sure what's going to happen in some of these negotiations that are going on. Really wanting to urge people to contact their state senators and delegates and say stand firm against tax increases this year. You might have noticed, and I don't know if you're like me, maybe you're looking on social media like Facebook or Instagram, you might have been seeing some ads on your feed that are coming from the Maryland State Teachers Association, the Maryland State Educators Association. It's the largest teachers union in the state. They are running ads on radio and on digital and on social media saying that, urging the General Assembly to close corporate loopholes and fully fund education. What they mean is there's a part of what the House passed that raises business corporate taxes. They say it's closing a loophole. It's not. It would involve raising taxes on corporate entities in the state based on their earnings all over the world, all over the country, and trying to tie that into what they should pay for Maryland state taxes with their business taxes. It's interesting because they say if we close this corporate loophole, we can fully fund schools. Let me assure you that the projected deficits due to the Kirwan education spending in the out years, in the next couple years, grow to over $3 billion. This tax alone would only bring in maybe $100 million, which is still not great, but it would only bring in $100 million compared to the $3 billion price tag that's needed. And you say, well, then if it's only $100 million, why shouldn't we just go ahead and pass it? Not only does it not deal with the problem, but it also makes Maryland even less competitive economically than we already are. Right now, Maryland is the 47th worst state to do business in the country. Raising our taxes on businesses and job creators, and again, for something that won't even really solve the quote unquote problem of Kirwan funding, makes no sense at all. So if you see these advertisements about fully funding education, number one, we're already increasing education spending every year. We spend a massive amount of money on K through 12 public education in this state. And number two, this so-called corporate tax loophole, if you did close it, i.e. raise taxes on job creators, it wouldn't come close. It's a drop in the bucket to trying to meet this $3 billion goal. The truth is, what we need to do is slow down the overall implementation of Kirwan and the growth in the budget. That would actually help us if we stretched out the implementation of these programs over a few more years. Our GDP would have time to catch up with it. So it's just interesting. Sometimes the very powerful and well-heeled special interests, like these public sector unions, they will put things out there, and they have the luxury of having lots of money to pump that out. And a lot of people, unfortunately, just believe what they see. So I think it's important for people to know the truth, that they're talking about raising taxes on people who on companies that create jobs. And the tax they're talking about raising wouldn't even really make much difference in the overall big budget that they're trying to reach. So I thought that was an interesting thing to bring up this week. I look forward to the final full week of the legislative session. We have some things of ours that are moving, legislation of ours that are moving, keeping an eye on public safety, trying to get across the finish line some of our good anti-crime bills. So those are other things that I'm watching for the final week. And trying to kill some kind of bills that are just not good. They're anti-business or anti-family, or don't help us to make the state safer and are softer on crime. They're little bills that are floating around at this point of session, that they're not hot button, high profile, but they're not good. And that's what I try to do in the final week or so of session is, can we slow them down? Can we kill bad bills? That's a big part of what I try to do as we head towards the end of session. I look forward to updating you next week as we get close to the end of the session. And thank you again for the chance to serve you. Please feel free to reach out anytime.